You can configure the privacy settings manually in Windows 10, but this requires time and knowledge of all the settings. Fortunately, there are a number of automated tools to choose from to help, but you still have to look at disabling the privacy features as a moving target. Microsoft will make updates and you'll have to keep on top of any changes that need to be made to protect your privacy, which is why Windows 10 isn't the right choice if privacy is paramount to you. But I think if you just want to minimize your tracking, you could get away with Windows 10 as long as you stay on top of what needs to be blocked. With an automated tool, the hope is the software will keep up to date with any changes made by Microsoft and the latest information in protecting privacy. So these are the current tools for automatically fixing the privacy issues in Windows 10. First, you have Destroy Windows 10 Spying. This only affects host file changes, so that's no good at all. I'll explain why later. Then there's something called Disable Windows 10 Tracking. That's written in Python, is open source. That's very good. There's Do Not Spy 10, which is closed source, but does have explanations as to all the fixes it's making, and you can do backups. There's Windows 10 Privacy and Shit, which is a batch file, so that's open source. There's Windows 10 Privacy Fixer, which is open source. There's W10 Privacy, Shutup 10, that has backup functionality. Spybot Anti-Beacon for Windows 10. Now that's produced by a known anti-spyware company, so you could say there is some trust there built up with those guys. There is a Shampoo Anti-Spy for Windows 10 that has backup functionality. And there's Windows Privacy Tweaker. Those are the ones that I'm aware of. Many of these are made by pretty random developers, so you don't really have much knowledge or background on them. So you have to think about trust. Can you trust these people to have developed this software with your security and privacy in mind? If they are open source and you understand the language they are written in, you can verify the software. This is why it's best to go with open source as a tool for this, because these are from untrusted sources. You have no idea who has written some of these, and you don't know what extra bits of crap they've put into them, which could be counter to your security or privacy, which is why I go with an open source option. A couple of points about how these tools work. They do things like disable services, they affect app access, disable telemetry, remove apps, add firewall rules, and edit the host files and other things. The host file is a plain text file and is named hosts. It stops the operating system making DNS requests to resolve a web address or domain name into an IP address. Now, an example of that might be you put Google into the host file and a corresponding IP address. Then whenever you go to Google, it doesn't need to do a DNS query, it just looks in the host file first. Now, what these tools are doing is they're using this host file to put in false IP addresses in correspondence to the phone home domain names to stop them calling back home to Microsoft. So for example, they might be www.microsoft.com and they put in a corresponding IP address of 0.0.0.0. But the host file is no longer the all-powerful thing it used to be. In Windows 10, Microsoft has hard-coded IP addresses into the system's dynamic link libraries, effectively making domains and IP addresses unblockable by the operating system, so the host file doesn't work. But not everything is hard-coded like this though, so some of the phone homes that Windows 10 does do can be blocked in the host file. The host will provide some benefit, but it won't block everything. The other method that some of these tools use is to employ software firewall rules, like the Windows firewall, to block the phone homes. Again, because the firewall sits on top of the operating system, there is no guarantee that they will block all the IP addresses and for all time. Plus, if you're using the Windows firewall, which is a Microsoft product, that isn't a good choice to block Microsoft IP addresses. It would require testing and monitoring. The most effective way to block the phone homes is to block the addresses off the machine at your gateway device to the internet, so your router, your hardware firewall, etc. And we'll talk more about that later and how you might do that.